Around John F. Kennedy, around the halls. This is Cougar TV in Belmore, New York.
Out of respect for our student speakers, we ask you to remain in the auditorium for the duration of the session. If you must leave, we ask that you only exit between presentations. Please use the side door in the back of the auditorium. Thank you and for being here. Our program will begin shortly.
September 13th, 2025. I'd say it's not out there anytime soon. And honestly, I don't think I'm on either. That was my third, and hopefully my final SAT scheduled for it. I packed my way to Washington for a wedding, so it was completely on me to wake up that morning. The test at 8 a.m. and I set my first four alarms at 6:45. I studied a little bit before bed, and I went to sleep early. I was ready. The next morning, I woke up feeling great, thinking I knew my alarm. Which then happened. Then I grabbed my phone and looked at the time. 8:36 a.m. I was at the SAT. In a total panic, I got up and I ran to my brother's room and I woke him up just to tell. Like that wasn't anything. In that moment, I swear, I felt like the whole world was collapsing. I'm not saying here as your expert for mindset, success, or anything like that. I'm a baseball player, a pitcher, and I've not been in a moment where anything was wrong. I was at the SAT, and on the mound now, I've given a game winning home run. I've walked basically with an all pitches. I thought that same thing, that feeling of the whole world collapsing while 100 people are watching. But looking back, overseeing that test was the biggest lesson that I've ever learned. You can't control everything, but you can control your next move. See, at the time, my senior year was just that my mom made me prepare for cheese. Let me know that you also hold the outside as a just in case. Thanks, Mom. And the next time I took the test, the one I actually had full-time for, my score went over 100 points. It made me realize, maybe things fall apart better than things fall into place. That attitude my bad. I tried to control it over alarm, and I still would. But my next one, the activity was what mattered. It's the exact same thing with math. See, as a pitcher, I want to control everything. I want every pitch to be strike. But you know what? Sometimes the batter gets hit. Sometimes our mark is called. And Gad is just a team for arguing. Thanks, coach. And sometimes you just hang a curveball and leave it apart. You can't change it. You can't take that pitch back. All you can control is your next pitch. Just like you can't wake up jobs or as opposed to. We've all had those moments where something doesn't go to plan and it feels like the end of the world. You study for weeks and you still fail that test. You train all season and you still lose the game. You put everything into something and it just doesn't work out. In those moments, it's easy to get frustrated. It's easy to want to give up. On the mound, it's me getting ready by head. I started to the last bat. Aaron Merritt for the last phone call. What I learned is that those moments don't make or break me. Waking up and making each exam to find my way. Giving up on what doesn't find me either. What defines you is what you do at what you do the next bat. Because I learned to stop worrying about all the little things. To stop trying to check every single out and just focus on the next pitch. Because even when I can't see it moment, it all works out in the end. Overseeing September was my bad day. I tried to overseeing September was my bad day, but I got back on the mound in October. Your bad day, like bombing a test. A bad day, 4 or 5 but the game's over. So, the next time something doesn't go your way, take a breath, step back, and trust that's not the end. It's just a short picture. And you still got the mountain to finish. Thank you.
favorite role. And of course, I'm that kid for like not pronounce our S's and call me Obi. I never agree. Every time I went somewhere, she needed to follow. If I went to the mall, she also needs to go. If I bought a pink sweatshirt, she must have the same thing. If my mother offered to make steak for dinner that I didn't like, she loathed it. Anything I could do, she would copy and use. I think that quality is a great reference for being, especially when we're young. We look up to who we want to be. I do it too. I remember elementary school watching my babysitters walk to college. I wasn't upset because she was leaving, rather she had the ability. I couldn't wait to go to college. As children, we always focus on the future. We think about the fun things we do when we're older, like build small down here, drive around wherever we want. We rush off our trash out. Take our youth to school, for example. We look far ahead to the future, yet never focus on the present. In elementary school, we thought middle school was 9 periods not seeing the same teacher. And in middle school, we dreamed about high school, we got to leave campus and drive around. And in high school, we can't wait to go to college. We never live in the moment and never take opportunities that we have at our 30s. What was the last time you had played by ear? Have you ordered fruit for year again and turned out around exactly what I like? Nowadays, we go to hang out together by ourselves and our friends. We can use our own ride and our own money. And to get money, we get a job or do chores to get allowance. Well, we may not physically age, we never go back to ours. We are no longer that young and will never be that age again. As a senior now, I'm constantly thinking about how college. And then I realized, I'm waiting for my last year. My last time meeting with people from elementary. My last time meeting with my closest friends. My last time getting to meet you. We are so focused on something. The fear of being away from our parents, not having them pick out maps, not having them tell us to clean our room, to do homework when or if you want to. The truth is we aren't very focused on the present. Whenever my sister tells me it's not fair that I get to do things that she can't,
trauma defines you, when really, it can refine you, if you're willing to face it, if you're brave enough to climb back into the very thing that scared you. For me, the siren no longer only signals an emergency. It reminds me of the strength in me and how far I've come. And now, when I'm out in the neighborhood and I spot an ambulance, I check to see if it's my crew, and I'm always so proud when it is. Thank you.
For everyone in here, I've had this not-so-secret hobby for the past 5 years of my life. For a bunch of those years, it was something I chose to keep to myself because I was embarrassed of the horse drug stigma. Now, anyone who knows me knows I spend 7 days a week at the barn. I've tried many sports throughout my life, all in short bursts. Cheerleading for 2 years, soccer for 5, and softball for 3. All great sports, but I'm not a different kind of connection with riding horses. I'm sure you all remember the COVID quarantine now. It was when I first had the opportunity to try riding a horse. Since everything indoors was closed, my family and some of our friends decided to try trail riding at the Benefit Equestrian Center, but my youngest sister was too little for the trails, so she stayed back and became an individual lesson instead. I thought to myself, that was a cool experience, so I decided to try it. I know it was fun animals, so I figured I would enjoy it. That one-time lesson turned into weekly lessons, which turned into getting a horse of my own. Her name was Stella, and I got her during my sophomore year. She was an ex-racehorse who we got as a baby in hopes of producing a show jumping horse. We were making progress when Stella was diagnosed with ulcers, which caused her to act out and behave unpredictably. There were numerous instances where she proved herself to be dangerous, but I kept working with her because my love for my first horse and for the sport outweighed my concerns. Then, on November 1st of 2024, completely unprovoked, she reared straight up and my face collided with her neck before I blacked out and fell off. I ended up with a concussion and a broken nose. The same nose that I had a rhinoplasty on only 6 months prior. It felt, to be quite first, Stella was deemed too dangerous to ride, and we had to sell her. It felt like my entire riding career was over. The confidence I gained plummeted immediately. My parents were terrified. My dad didn't want me ever getting on a horse again, and I didn't even have a horse to ride. There's a saying, get back on the horse, means not to after a failure and instead to try again. I remember hearing the inspiring story of Bethany Hamilton, a professional surfer who lost her arm to a shark attack while out on her surfboard, and after rehabbing, continued to ride on the water to surf. I can relate, so I have such a love for a sport that the passion outweighs the risks. Even though horses were the thing that put me out of commission, I couldn't help but miss it every day while I was recovering. So, I took the saying literally. After 2 months of recovery, I went back to the farm and lived my life for the past few years without walking another horse. However, it definitely wasn't easy. My trainer saw it and so did my parents. Going back in the ring on the same animal that threw me off that morning made me nervous. Even though my temporary first Pepe was always calm, every time I walked past that corner of the ring where all was a shambles, I wondered if he would freak out the same way Stella did. There was no horse that I felt safe on, and it was extremely discouraging. Was this even a sport for me? In the beginning, I had days where I would get on the horse and undefeated, even if nothing went wrong, and others where I would just freeze up in fear, and my trainers would ask if I'd rather not continue. But that was a year ago. In the past year, I rebuilt my foundation, confidence, and finally got to a point where I felt ready to take on a new universe, talent. It feels good to be able to immerse myself back into something that once intimidated me. I guess the moral of my story is to get back on the horse even when you get thrown off, but that's a little too simple. I've had a journey toward confidence with the sport, whether it be being embarrassed about the sport itself, falls, or even my appearance after I took up the school with a cast on my face. From this I learned that confidence helps form the end of the line. They're an opportunity to fortify your foundation and create a newly improved version of yourself. So, here's a real question I like to ask myself. Do I love this enough to pay the price? The price for me was a broken nose and months of fear, but I realized that the pain of walking away from the barn was worse than the pain of getting back in the saddle. My journey wasn't a straight line either, which is why I preach, don't let anything stop you from doing what you love. We all have hobbies for what we need our passions. Those things that we're willing to fight to something you're willing to fight to reclaim. So, don't just find something you like doing. Find the thing that you'd be willing to return to even after it goes into your around. That willingness to choose it again and again, knowing the cost, is how you build your confidence. Thank you.
Every story has a setting, a place that holds the pivotal moments that end up shaping the plot. But in real life, we rarely notice ours until we look back and realize how much it actually held. For me, that place has been my kitchen. If you've ever FaceTimed me, or even just walked into my house, you already know exactly where I'm sitting. Middle chair at the island, 9 flower frames on the wall behind me. The same spot every single time. It started as a habit. Planting myself on my seat after a long day of school, cracking open a seltzer, and starting writing. But somehow, every important moment in my life seems to have found its way there. When the world shut down in 2020, the kitchen immediately became my home base. It's where I spent hours on half-finished puzzles and the many TV shows I was watching at the time. It's where I contemplated what I was learning during online school, or if I was learning anything at all. I discovered my passion for drawing and interior design, creating safe and comfortable spaces for others as I sat in mine. It became a place for every phase I went through. Here's just a few. The slime phase, the edible slime phase, and one of my personal favorites, the cooking with Dory phase, where we nearly burned down my entire kitchen on numerous occasions. But looking back, it was those simple moments in my kitchen that got me to that point. And when life finally started moving again, the kitchen moved with me. 2 years later, my sister Sandy left for college, and there was a noticeable change. Suddenly, the house felt quiet. Just me and my mom, trying to figure out what us looked like without anyone else around. And without even realizing it, the kitchen became a place that holds us together. No closed doors, no disappearing evidence. Just the two of us in our shared space, creating the kinds of memories that strengthen our bond from just mom and daughter to lifelong partners. But really, the kitchen wasn't just our space. It became everyone's space. Everyone who walks into my house ends up in that kitchen too. No one goes to the couch. They head straight to the island, sit down, and just start talking. And I start talking too. It's the room where the walls come down. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Come to think of it, I guess it's ironic that the room with no walls is the one where I let my own down. My kitchen has been the place that has taught me how to let people in. Not just into my head, but into the parts of myself that I don't want to show. Letting someone into your space is easy, but letting them into your life, the tired, messy, honest parts, that's hard. And the kitchen is the one place where I don't have to hide, don't pretend, and don't close the door. And where the connection doesn't always happen, but everything's perfect. It happens when you're willing to be seen. And once I realized that, something else made sense. Something I never expected to connect to this story. Every Tuesday night, I'd sit in my exact same kitchen chair and watch Dancing with the Stars with my mom. And my favorite performance of this evening was a dance from Whitney Levitt and Mark Battles to the room where it happens from Hamilton. There was just something about it. The energy, the storytelling, the idea that everyone has one room that shapes them. And for me, that was my kitchen. The place where I learned who I am, where I learned how to let people in, middle chair at the island, flower frames behind. We're rooting for all happy times. Thank you.
Some families pass down photo albums or recipes. Mine passed down a place, a day camp. My mom was a camper there when she was younger, and after she had kids, she went back. My sister and I started after we were barely out of preschool and have been going back ever since. For as long as I can remember, Coleman's been my whole summer. It's where my family stories overlap. My favorite memory of camp has to be when we got the purple VG9s. Being a camper usually ends when you go into 8th grade, so this was a special time for my campers and I since we missed us on going into 7th grade because of COVID. Being a G9 meant we only be safety for one summer and the oldest in camp for a second. But this isn't a story about summer. It's what happens when you go from being a kid to being the one in charge of the kids. Fast forward a few years later, now I'm the one sitting in the stash at orientation, and every year we get the same reminder. Not a rule, not a slogan. Every kid goes home with 2 new friends at the end of the first day, and the whole summer will open up for them. It doesn't mean 2 perfect friends or even 2 best friends, just 2 people who make you feel like you're not invisible. 2 people you can sit with at lunch, play Gaga with, or even just make bracelets with. That's what you imagine of a place like Coleman. It's at the painting arts and crafts, the pizza, or even the Olympic competition. It's the songs, the traditions, the inside jokes, and the feeling of belonging. Give a kid 2 friends at the end of the first day, and the whole summer open up for them. Then watch that same kid grow into someone who can give that same magic to others. As a camper, I got to receive all this magic, and as a counselor, I get to give it. I'm the one leading the songs, teaching the games, and making sure every kid goes home with the same memories I did. My mom passes this down to me, and every summer I get to pass it on to the new generation of campers at Coleman. Coleman isn't just a place, it's a legacy, and a legacy I'm so proud to be a part of. Thank you.
The average height of an adult woman in the United States is 5 feet and 4 inches tall. I stand before you, barely scraping 4 feet and 10 inches tall. Today, I am able to tell an entire auditorium full of people how tall I am. But up until my sophomore year, I typically laughed whenever anybody asked me how tall I was, hiding behind intense embarrassment of my short stature. You're probably wondering why I ever felt this way, why I ever gave it any attention at all. So what? People have short parents. They produce short children. It's simple biology. But I want you to take a look at this picture. Do you notice anything? If you say no, you're a polite liar. But if you say yes, ouch. In all seriousness, it is apparent that each one of my family members, my parents and my brothers, are at least a foot taller than I am. My mom is 5'9", my dad is 6 foot, my older brother is 6'3", and my younger brother is 6'1". Now I know what you're thinking. Short and junior. What an absolute gene jackpot. Standing here today, I'd have to agree with you. I'm lucky to have a trait that differs from that of my family. But if you asked me from ages 7 to 15 if I felt this way, I think I would have either cried or punched you in the face for asking me such a stupid question. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory as to how this happened and why I felt so angry about being short for so long. My hatred for my height began when I was very young, when I remember family members coming over and talking about how much my brothers had grown from the year prior. But when they got around to talking about me, they would say something along the lines of, "Oh, well, Mia's just so beautiful." Even as young as I was, I knew there was something that withheld them from assessing my growth as well. But the reminders weren't always so blatant, however. Little things would remind me of the differences between them and I. For example, they could put things on the highest shelf and reach them just fine. Me, on the other hand, I would find myself looking for the nearest chair to go searching for goldfish. Outside of my home, my early years, I was constantly followed with questions, treated almost like a failed lab experiment by those who knew both me and my brothers that towered over me. How are you so short and your brothers are so tall? What happened to you? That last part of the question, the "what happened to you" part, alludes to the fact that because I'm different from my brothers, means that there had to be something wrong with me, that was the only explanation. This idea began to feel very real to me when my mom brought me to an endocrinologist, where I was able to see my tiny red dot, depicting where I fell in percentile in height when compared with normal 7-year-old girls, where it appeared that my red dot was floating all by itself, an inch below the typical growth line. But why did this happen? I won't bore you with all the boring, sciencey things that, honestly, I don't even understand. Only my mom can really do that part. But I'll do what I can. I don't produce enough growth hormone in my body, which led to my slow growth, which eventually led me to being placed on growth hormone at just 7 years old. From that day forward, for the next 6 years of my life, I spent every night injecting myself with a tiny needle to ensure that I would grow to an exceptional adult height according to society. At the time, I thought this was ridiculous, and I hated my mom for doing something like this to me. I strategically hid this aspect of my daily routine as a double life, planning out when I would take it before birthday parties, sleepovers, or any late nights out to avoid scaring my friends, or even worse, causing them to not want to be friends with someone so weird. I had a goal by the end of being on growth hormone. It was reasonable for many people, but it was still a stretch for somebody like me. I wanted to be 5 feet tall, the height that subconsciously crosses a person over from being a child's height to becoming an adult's height. And with every appointment, I physically saw myself grow closer and closer with every mark placed on the wall. But when the end finally came, I sat at 4 feet, 10 inches tall, just as I said in the beginning. The reason why I often choked when somebody asked me how tall I was because it was a reminder that I essentially failed. I couldn't complete the goal that I had set for myself in all of the years that I had spent trying. But then I realized something. The only person that made me out to be small was myself. I'm the biggest person anybody could ever know. Truthfully, I don't think you could miss me if you tried. My friends often tell me I constantly speak at a volume of 10, don't know how to whisper, and I take up the space of 50. You're going to fight for the goals that you want in life, and you're going to put in the work. But some things are simply non-negotiable. They're biology, and they're not failures. Although I didn't reach the 5-foot mark, I reached something far better. I reached acceptance. When you finally learn to accept the one thing that you cannot change about yourself, that you once hated with every fiber of your being, you can finally learn to stop wasting your energy fighting it, and you can start figuring out how to dominate from exactly where you stand. So, what's my point in telling you any of this? Stop striving for those last 2 inches you will never gain, and start celebrating the unique perspective that you already have. From 4 feet, 10 inches tall, I have a view of the world that my 6'3" brother will never see. And that, I realize, is the real gene jackpot. Thank you.
Over the course of my childhood, I always spent a lot of time with my grandparents. My mom always made sure they were a part of my life, and after all, they only lived a mile away from our house. We'd spend hours talking about the most random topics, but my favorite was my grandmother's travels. Occasionally, we'd land on the topic of Israel, our people's holy land, and the experiences she had when she was younger. At some point after one of these talks, she presented me with a chai pendant she had bought at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. When I held this pendant, my grandmother said, "Please take this piece of my family's history and wear it with great pride." That moment ignited something in me. I never would have known how this pendant would lead me on my journey of self-discovery and spark a deeper appreciation for my culture and people. Initially, the pendant ignited a spark within me. I wanted to learn more about the meaning behind the pendant, and I became even more fascinated with the land of Israel and its history. The inscription on the pendant reads Chai, which in Hebrew means to live. As my interest grew, I decided to visit Israel during the summer of 2023. Finally, I'd have a true opportunity to connect the Chai to my own Jewish roots. As I arrived at the airport, nerves took control of me. The thought of traveling halfway around the world to a country with no one I'd ever met was, to say the least, intimidating. Sitting on the plane for the 14-hour flight with 20 other kids from around the world, I wondered if I'd fit in with the others. As the landscape of Israel came into sight during the plane's descent, I felt my excitement growing. I grabbed my luggage, followed our guides, where we loaded up and set off. I had no idea how much I would grow as a person by taking this trip to this extremely special place. The group and I experienced more than I can comprehend. From rafting in the biblical Jordan River, spending time in the Negev desert, floating in the Dead Sea, and ultimately understanding more about my faith and place in the world, the 3 weeks I spent in Israel were beyond my wildest dreams. To this day, even though it's been close to 2 years since that remarkable trip, I still speak to many of the others from the travel group. I even became more involved in the Jewish youth group organization BBYO, where I attended International Convention twice. More than anything, This trip taught me that the most memorable moments usually begin with uncertainty. Stepping into the unknown now is less of a challenge for me and more of an opportunity to learn, grow, and make meaningful connections. I learned how deep bonds stem from shared experiences and how growing out of your comfort zone teaches you to be a more resilient person. If it wasn't for the chai pendant my grandmother gave me, I wouldn't have connected to my Jewish identity as deeply as I have. For that, I'm eternally grateful. Thank you.
Hi, can I please have hibachi chicken, fried rice, and vegetables? That's my standard order at the Asian restaurant I go to. But this talk isn't about the food, it's about who I'm saying it to. That's my order at Meriksuki, a hibachi place on Merrick Avenue owned by a family who moved here from China. I can tell you the whole family tree, but what's important is that they become my family too. I'll give you some backstory. I've been taking Chinese for the past 6 years. I can take the test, I can do the homework, I can write the characters, but for the longest time it's always just been a class. It was something I learned, not something I lived. I had no one to actually speak with. And then, last year, I got chosen to speak at the Chinese Honor Society induction. It was the most amount of Chinese I've had to speak in front of that many people. I was terrified of failing, or mispronouncing every word. I knew I couldn't just study in my room, I needed real help. So, I took my speech to the one place I felt safe, Meriksuki. I showed my speech to Irene, the owner and daughter of the family. She didn't just glance at it, she sat down. And she absolutely did make me recite the entire thing in the middle of the restaurant while everyone was eating their dinner. They even posted a video of it on their TikTok account. But they also helped me. They corrected my mispronunciation, they cheered me on. They weren't just helping a customer, it was like they were coaching their kid. After the actual induction, I sent them a video of me saying my speech on stage in front of the big crowd. I was proud of myself, but more than that, I knew I had made them proud too. And that one night, that one speech changed everything. I wasn't just their customer who speaks in Chinese, I was family. How did I know? Because when Irene and her family had plans to visit China for the summer, they invited me to go with them. Unfortunately, I had to say no, but that didn't stop us. We would text while she was away. She would send me videos for kids, for family, and just for life back home. When I went back for the first time after, just her sister-in-law was there, and we FaceTimed Irene right on the spot. She told me she'd brought me back a present from Shanghai. Now, I'm their poster child. I'm the person they call over to speak to a relative on FaceTime. I've only taken my real family there once, and they all ran out to meet each other. So yes, I'm kind of a big deal. As someone who still doesn't speak perfect Chinese, I make mistakes all the time, but I never feel bad for asking for help. I think when it comes to different cultures, most people get scared. We act like it's almost an insult to mispronounce a word. We're afraid to try. But Irene and her family have never made me feel bad for my mistakes. They've always helped me. They didn't just teach me new words, they taught me what it feels like to truly belong. And through taking Mandarin, I didn't just learn another language, I got to learn about another culture. And more than that, I found my second family. Thank you.
Does this look like a bunny to you? Yeah, I don't think so either. But believe it or not, this was the bunny my mom had promised me. With a show of hands, how many of you have ever begged your parents for a pet? Exactly. You get it. The nagging, the promise of I'll walk it every day, I'll feed it, I'll never ask for anything again. I tried everything you could imagine, from PowerPoints to persuasive essays to convince my parents to get me a pet. My dad even saved the essay. After devoting so much energy to trying to get a puppy and accepting that maybe it just wouldn't work out, I decided to switch my fixation to a new animal. An animal that I thought would be easier to get my parents on board with. A bunny. In the 6th grade, I did heavy research on how to take care of a bunny. The lifestyle, maintenance, and equipment it needed. My mom, dad, and I would go to pet stores any chance I could just so I could see the bunnies. I was completely set with this now, and it seemed my mom had been too. She didn't have to take it on the walks I swore to take, and I had the fluffy animal by my side that I had so desperately wanted. All the boxes were checked, besides one. My older sister Isabella could not begin to fathom the thought of having a rodent living inside of our house. So much so, she even cried every time it was brought up. One night at dinner, we were talking about the addition of the bunny to our family, and she swore she would move out if we got one. But I was insistent. Okay, well, we aren't getting a dog, so can you at least let me have this? My persistence worked, sort of. I'll never forget that night. Me and my sister entered the house, and my mom said she had a surprise for us. I swear tears started to fill my eyes, and when I looked over, there were tears in my sister's eyes too. Except, mine were for happiness, and hers were for sadness. I mean, how dramatic can one be? Out walked my mom with an animal wrapped in a fluffy blanket, with fake bunny ears sticking out. Confused, I thought, why would she just put fake bunny ears on my bunny? And then, it happened. My mom unwrapped the blanket, and it wasn't a bunny. It was a puppy wearing fake bunny ears. There it was, my dream dog. We named her Giselle, Gigi for short, and from that day forward, she became the biggest part of my life. She became my best friend. Every Wednesday and Thursday night when I get home from dance practice, she's waiting by the doors like clockwork. As soon as I step inside, she goes straight for my socks, pawing at them with such focused determination that it should be annoying, but it's so completely her that I just can't help but laugh and accept my socks defeat. It's the little things she does that make her so unique and special to me. Gigi has become a huge part of our family. She's practically in every family photo. She's at every birthday celebration wearing her crown. She's under the table at every holiday just waiting for a piece of food to drop down. And she even travels with us everywhere we go. This talk is not just about getting a dog, although I could clearly talk about her for hours. It's about the beauty behind the unexpected. When I was 6, I tried to write a persuasive essay to convince my parents to get me a pet. In the 6th grade, I created a PowerPoint to plan for this perfect pet. I spent years fighting for a puppy and then settling for a bunny. I thought I knew exactly what I wanted and I had all the details planned out. But then, my parents threw out my plan. They ignored my checklist. And that moment, the total surprise, was better than every perfect puppy I could have ever planned for. It's the little moments with Gigi that always get me. The calm ones, like how she'll bring her bone over just to keep me company while I'm doing my homework. Or the more chaotic ones, like when she ran out of the bathroom with toilet paper stuck to her face, unwrapping the whole roll in my house. It's crazy to think that I wanted a bunny instead. I mean, let's be honest, a bunny could never compete. The best things in life are rarely found at the end of a perfect plan. They're found in the moment when you stop fighting the circumstances, once you stop forcing an outcome, and only then can you allow yourself to be surprised by pure joy. So no, life didn't hand me a bunny. It handed me a Gigi and bunny ears, an unexpected surprise that was so much better than anything I could have ever imagined. Thank you.
I'm Delaney, and I'm Emily, and we have been together for every minute of our lives. Well, except the first minute of mine. I was born at 4:50 a.m., and I was born at 4:51. We're twins, if you haven't noticed. Identical, to be exact. Throughout our lives, we have constantly been mistaken for one another, asked, what is it like to be a twin, and are you guys like the same person? There are people who don't call us by our names separately, they just call us the twins or BMs. And sometimes, that can be the worst. Our family friends literally didn't know our first names until we were 12 years old. I'm not kidding. And on top of that, when one of us does something wrong, it seems like both of us are doing something wrong. For example, when she spends too much money on clothes, my parents will complain that the twins are spending too much money on clothes. Yeah, and when you leave your shoes out in the hallway, it's always that the girls leave their shoes out in the hallway. The point is, growing up, we were constantly defined as a single unit, which created this problem. How do we become us when everyone sees us as we? Okay, to be fair, being a twin is lots of fun. Our friends used to think we have twin telepathy, and we do. We know exactly what each other is going to say. Want to see? Ready? Ready. Name a color. Blue. Name a food. Mac and cheese. Name an animal. PUBG. Yeah, see, magic. Only twins can do that. Okay, well, to be honest, most of that was made up. We figured out early on that it was more fun to pretend like we could read each other's minds. That's some of the humor twins get to share. It was always fun when our friends believed us. It was also fun at Lakeside when we would swap classes. Okay, not as fun as it sounds because our teachers never really noticed, but we wanted to see if anyone knew the difference, but no one ever really did.
The truth is, the world wanted us to be one person, but those games taught us to be distinct, whether we were standing side by side or guessing which food the other was thinking.
People compare siblings, but they always compare twins. Who's prettier, who's nicer, who's smarter, and who's cooler. You know, all the things that I am. But really, the pressure to compete with your built-in best friend is constant. But the great thing about being a twin is you always have a companion, we share clothes, and we have similar friends.
Though that can sometimes be a bad thing. But the good thing is that you have someone there for everything. I know exactly what she is going through, and she knows exactly what I'm going through. It has taught us understanding.
We have learned that our relationship wasn't about being the same, we are also pretty different. For example, she loves Drake, and I love Zach Bryan, and I play lacrosse, and she plays golf. And that proves something important in life. Even if you share 100% of the same DNA as someone else, you still are unique.
And as you can see in this picture, I'm dancing while she is crying, and that definitely says something about us. You can have a constant companion and still carve out your own identity.
So, the next time someone tries to define you by the twins or the person whose sentences you complete, just remember that you get to choose your story and you get to tell it how you want to tell it.
And like we said earlier in this talk, being a twin is fun. I told you that I'm Emily.
And I said I'm Delaney.
Well, I'm actually Delaney.
And I'm Emily.
But you probably didn't notice. And that's okay, because I'll always be me, the one that spends too much money on clothes.
And I'll always be me, the one who gets in trouble because she spends too much money on clothes.
Thank you.
Have you ever heard about the importance of making an entrance? It's a skill I mastered on day one. Let me set you the scene. July 29, 2008. Born breach on the bathroom floor of my house, one day ahead of schedule, I was delivered by my dad, with my grandfather holding my mom from behind, and my older sister fast asleep down the hall. From the very beginning, I arrived on my own terms. Unconventional, early, and full of energy. I didn't wait for the perfect moment. I didn't follow a plan. I just showed up. As I've gotten older, I realized that story isn't just a memory to look back on. It's a metaphor for my life. My life hasn't been perfectly planned out. There were moments of doubt and uncertainty, times when I didn't know what would happen next. But I've learned that sometimes the best blessings come in the most unexpected ways. Often, they show up disguised as a total crisis. I've been on the Kennedy varsity softball team since 8th grade. During my freshman year, after a starting pitcher tore her ACL, I was going to be out for the whole season. I knew it was my responsibility to step up as a pitcher. As a freshman on varsity, this task was completely unexpected. But through all the ups and downs of the season, I learned more about leadership and resilience than I ever imagined. It taught me that life doesn't always go according to plan. But sometimes, those unplanned moments end up being the ones that define you, the ones that shape you the most. And this isn't just a lesson from the pitcher's mound. Whether it be taking a class in school I was unsure about at first, or joining a club that pushed me out of my comfort zone, stepping into the unknown has led me to some of my most meaningful experiences. Those moments remind me that sometimes life surprises aren't always setbacks. Sometimes they're the unexpected gifts that shape who you become. I've learned that the best things in life aren't the ones you plan for. They're the ones you grow from. It's stepping up when no one else will lead the way. It's taking a different path, one where the outcome is unknown. It's even losing that extra inning softball game, feeling crushed at the moment, but learning a lesson I'll carry forever. No matter the circumstances, every step I've taken has shown me that you can't live your life by reading a script. You have to be able to improvise and embrace the moments that don't go as planned. And sometimes, those unscripted moments end up being the ones that shape you the most. If life always went according to plan, I wouldn't have learned how to adapt. I wouldn't have learned how to handle things not turning out the way I thought they would. And I definitely wouldn't have learned how to grow in the experiences I didn't plan for. So now, when life doesn't go exactly how I thought it would, I remind myself that maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe this unexpected path will prepare me for something better than I imagined. And maybe that's the whole point. Because when I think about how I came into this world, on my own timeline, in my own chaotic way, I realized that life's always been teaching me the same lesson. That sometimes the best blessings don't announce themselves. They don't come with warnings, and they don't follow the script. They just show up. Unexpected, unplanned, and exactly right. Thank you.
We all know some of the greatest athletes in the world. LeBron James, 6 feet, 9 inches tall, exceptional physical dominance, an incredible scorer. Serena Williams, one of the most dominant servers in the history of women's tennis. Her speed, strength, and footwork made her one of the best tennis players of all time. Eli Manning, played in 210 games, incredibly durable, one of the best arms of his generation, and 2 Super Bowl championships. All these athletes, and many, many others, should be celebrated. They're incredible humans. The skills to play those sports, basketball, tennis, and football, is enormous. You can add baseball, hockey, and swimming. There are so many sports, so many great athletes, and so many skills. But one sport that often gets overlooked is one that I did, cheerleading. When I was younger, my mom tried so hard to help me find something I loved. She signed me up for dance, gymnastics, and even track. And I tried. I really did. Every time I joined a new team, I hoped that this would be the thing that finally stuck. But the same thing happened every time. I would start off excited, then slowly feel out of place, then eventually quit. In gymnastics, I remember watching other kids flip and land perfectly while I felt like I could barely stand on my own 2 feet. I always fell behind. And then I tried dance. At first, it was fun, but then I just felt like I was just going through the same motions, and everyone else seemed so graceful and talented. I stuck with dance for a little while, but then it just felt like a chore to go to. And track was the same story. Everyone else seemed so fast and effortless. I felt it was not my thing, and yet again, I quit. Starting to notice a pattern? After a while, I started to believe that maybe it was just not meant for sports. I felt like everyone had a thing that they were good at, but me. I had felt lost. I felt like I was a friend who quit everything. I hated that feeling. But then one day, my mom said that I should try cheerleading. I remember rolling my eyes so hard. I said no, absolutely not. I had such a clear picture in my head. I thought she was only for bratty girls who cared about drama and attention. I thought it was all bows and young and being perfect all the time. I did not see myself fitting into that at all. But my mom kept encouraging me, and eventually I gave in. I agreed to just try one practice. I told myself I would hate it. I walked in prepared to walk right back out. But that one practice changed everything. The second I walked into the gym, I heard loud music, people practicing tumbling, and girls lifting each other into the air. It was nothing like the stereotype in my head. Everyone was focused, strong, and was working hard. And then I tried my first stunt. And even though it was small and simple, I felt something I never felt before. I felt excited, and I felt challenged in a good way. It made me want to try again. And for the first time in my entire life, I did not quit. And then I went back the next day, and the next, and the next. Cheer slowly became something I cared about more than anything. And the best part was the team. Cheer is not something you can do alone. Eventually, these girls that I'd spend my time with every day for 7 months became not only my teammates, they became my best friends. The bonds that you can create from the sport alone is incredible, and that is something that will never change. Cheer has taught me discipline and commitment. It gave me the kind of confidence I never had before, the kind that grows from falling and then getting back up. Most of all, cheer has taught me not to judge something before you truly understand it. I judged cheer so hard before I even gave it a chance. I judged the people and I judged the sport, and I was so wrong about all of it. Now, I've been cheering for 5 years. 5 years of dedication, memories, bruises, victories, and lessons. I used to think quitting meant I was weak. Now I know I just not found my place yet. So, LeBron has basketball, Serena has tennis, and Eli has football. And I have cheerleading, the sport that taught me not to quit. Thank you.
Keeping up since I was 10 years old. I've watched every fight, every contour tutorial, every crying scene. And yes, I could quote Kim, there's people that are dying by heart. Some people have religion. I have the Kardashians. Yes, my talk tonight is about Kim, Kourtney, Khloe, Kendall, Kylie, and Kris. I am obsessed with the Kardashians. I've seen them get married, divorced, married again, launch brands, relaunch brands, and create major headlines. I followed fan accounts, watched every drama recap on YouTube, and can identify their voices from the next group in a second. They've been my distraction, my comfort show, and honestly, my unofficial life coaches. They're dramatic, I know, but these women have weirdly shaped who I am. So today, I'm here to confess that my obsession actually taught me a few life lessons. Lesson number 1, using humor in every situation. If there's one thing the Kardashians are great at, besides owning 47 businesses each, it's laughing through all their chaos. And trust me, there's a ton of it. A breakup? Joke about it. A scandal? Turn it into a meme. A bad outfit? Post it anyway. When Kim ugly cries, it becomes merch. And when Chloe gets roasted online, she posts a selfie. I learned that humor's often the best medicine. When life gets messy, sometimes all you can do is laugh and fix your mascara later. Because if they can make global headlines out of a family argument, I can survive a bad day. Lesson number 2, family is everything. Chris once said, never go against the family. They fight over clothes, makeup, and businesses, but at the end of the day, they show up for each other, even if it's just for a group selfie. When Courtney copies Kim's wedding performer, it brings great TV, but also a great lesson about family. It's in those dysfunctional family moments that made me realize family's not about always being perfect. It's about loving people even when they drive you crazy. And learn that having your family around you brings out the best of you and can help you get through any situation. Lesson number 3, the power of business. They may be reality stars and have tens of millions of followers, but they're also the most successful businesswomen we've seen today. These women have turned their lives into a global empire. Kim built Skims, Kylie became the youngest self-made billionaire, and Kim was one of the world's biggest supermodels. You can laugh at it, but really they're none other than Mrs. Rojas. They have taught me the best lessons in the power of marketing and branding. Lesson number 4, how to find an escape. After any bad test grade, any piece of bad news, or any time life gets overwhelming, you can find me right in the corner of my couch watching the Kardashians. It's familiar, it's dramatic, and it somehow makes anything okay again. It gives me a laugh, a fact, a new obsession. It might give me less time to do my homework, but it gives my mind a break. So yeah, I watched all 312 episodes of the Kardashians, probably know their family tree better than my own, and I spent way too much money on all their products. But beyond all that time and money consuming a maybe unhealthy obsession, I learned how to laugh at myself, show up for others, and deal with chaos. I learned that sometimes all you need is a dysfunctional family from Calabasas, California, to make your day better and shape you as a person. So sometimes all we can do is take a deep breath and remind ourselves that in the wise words of Kris Jenner, you're doing amazing, sweetie. Thank you.
When people think about golf, they picture nice green fairways, perfect drives, and that beautiful sound of the ball dropping into the cup. They picture Justin Thomas walking up to the 18th green and tapping it for the win. But anyone who plays the sport knows the truth. It's not about perfection. It's about managing disaster. It's about how you respond when things go sideways and how you prepare for your next shot to avoid complete disaster. I played for the golf team here at Kennedy, and for the past 3 years, the game taught me more about myself than anything else. When I first started playing, I would let one bad shot completely ruin my round. I would tell my dad and brother that I wanted to go home after the first hole if I wasn't playing well, which is something they still make fun of me for to this day. But I realized I wasn't alone in this. Even pro golfers hit bad shots. I watched the best golfer in the world, Scotty Scheffler, hit his shank into the woods like the rest of us. But it's the great golfers that can recover from these bad shots. See, the whole premise of golf is fundamentally backwards. Think about it. It's the only sport where the lowest score wins. You're not aiming for the most points. You're aiming to minimize the negatives. This constant drive to minimize your mistakes or your bogeys is the core of the sport, and it's the core of resilience. Whether it's a shank off the tee, a chunked wedge, or a misread putt, the frustration is unlike anything else. In that moment, you want to redo. You want to take that shot again because you know you're capable of doing it better. But golf doesn't give you that luxury. You just get the next shot, and that's where the game really begins. The first lesson golf taught me is that the moment of failure isn't the final score. It's just where you take your first drop. In life, people often think that you need to hit a perfect drop in every project, every paper, and every day. But what happens when you miss that deadline? When a friendship explodes? Or when a plan you spent weeks on gets lost in the deep rough?
In those moments, it's easy to let one bad break turn into a triple bogey day. But it's important that you take a step back, breathe, and forget the last shot entirely. Look at Rory McIlroy at the Masters. He chased that green jacket for years, and when he finally got his chance, he had a 4-shot lead on Sunday, just to see it disappear in just a couple holes. It was a massive collapse happening in real time. But he didn't quit. He composed himself, hit a clutch shot to force the playoff, and then won the whole thing on the first playoff hole. He turned what looked like total defeat into his greatest victory simply by hitting reset. It takes far more mental discipline to hit that shot out of the trees than it does to hit a perfect drive off a clean tee box. That discipline is what saves your score, and it's what saves your sanity. While recovery is essential, it's only half the picture. The other half, risk, especially in golf, when you're always faced with a choice. Do you just punch back out into the fairway, or do you take that risky shot in between the trees to go for the green? Unfortunately for me, I've searched my ball in the woods more times than I can count. Last year, in one of my matches, I was faced with the choice of either going for the green over the water or taking the safe option and taking 2 shots to get to the green. Knowing me, I went for the risky shot and unfortunately watched my ball come out low and head straight for the water. Pro golfers are famous for their ability to hit reset after every single shot, and that's the mindset that we all need to adopt. So the next time that you hit a fat shot into the ground or you're feeling out of balance on a project, take a step back and remember, think like a golfer. The world doesn't care that you hit a perfect drive. It cares that you managed the disaster, took the risky shot when it mattered, and never let one bad shot ruin an entire round. Thank you.
My secret obsession started when I was 3. And no, it wasn't playing with American Girl dolls or pretending to be a teacher. It was far more dramatic. It was Annie. Yes, the Broadway musical about a red-headed orphan and her dog. My parents, like all good parents do, made me feel like I was a star every time I opened my mouth to sing Tomorrow. They encouraged me to sing it in hotel lobbies, the middle of the Bronx Zoo, and pretty much every family gathering we ever attended. And truly, standing up here tonight, I just want to belt out a song. But I won't, because there's just one small problem. I have a terrible voice. And I don't mean I'm just being humble terrible, I mean break a wine glass terrible. And that creates a real conflict, doesn't it? We're all told that if you love something, you should do it. If you love a sport, you should try it for the team. If you love painting, you should take an art class. But what do you do when the one thing you love most in the world is the one thing that you are completely and hopelessly bad at? Was I supposed to just stop loving it? My mom is the one who started my obsession. She started constantly playing the soundtrack of Annie for me before I could read, and I was hooked. Finally, when I was 5, she took me to see the show. Once the lights dimmed and the orchestra started to play, I had a revelation. Theater is magic. The way the actors sing, perform, dance, and the lighting all come together are truly amazing. But for me, I wasn't meant to be on stage. I was made to be in the audience. I was a professional audience member, and from that day on, I counted down the days until I saw my next show. I've seen 21 Broadway shows, and here are some of my favorite moments. In Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka sings, "Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination." And it's pretty literal. From watching the classical film turn into a Broadway show was pure imagination. The child actors, when Violet turns blue, and the way Christian Royal sings and dances. When my mom and I finally saw Dear Evan Hansen, it was a special moment as we bonded over the songs that we were constantly playing in the car. And yes, we were those people whispering the songs the entire time. Watching these songs come to life literally brought us to tears. I am a theater kid, 100%. My destiny just wasn't to take acting classes or singing lessons. My role was just as important. The performers, they throw all this energy and magic from the stage, and I have been lucky to witness so much of it. But Broadway was more than just an escape. It was a connection, my therapy, my happiness, and this incredible lifelong bond I get to share with my mom. Each show has done more than just a happy feeling. It's given me a new perspective on the world. Broadway has taught me the most important lessons of all. It's taught me you don't have to be good at something to let it change your life. You don't even have to be a star to be part of the story. My obsession with Annie didn't lead me to Broadway, at least not to the stage. It led me to the best seat in the house. Thank you.
When I got my first sketchbook, I was convinced I could be the next Picasso. 5 minutes later, I realized my drawing looked like a lopsided potato. I tried again, and this time, looked like a slightly angrier potato. I kept ripping out page after page until the table I was sitting at had looked like a snowstorm had blown through. That's when my middle school art teacher walked by, looked at the mess, and said, "If you keep tearing out every mistake, how will you ever see how much you've grown?" I laughed at first, but that one line ended up changing the way I saw everything I created. So let me tell you what happened after that moment. Because that one comment did not only change my drawings, it also changed the way I approached every skill I tried to learn. At the time, I believed every page in my sketchbook had to be perfect. I thought that if a drawing was bad, I should hide it, throw it away, and pretend it never happened. And honestly, a lot of us think this way about our own progress. We do this with school, sports, performances, and even the way we see ourselves. If something's not perfect, we feel like it doesn't count. But when I stopped hiding my messy pages, I realized something important. My sketchbook was never meant to be a gallery of masterpieces. It was supposed to be a record of my growth. Every weird proportion and every crooked line was a part of learning, and that doesn't help me let go of the pressure to be instantly great at everything. I've spent years drawing and painting. I'm not a professional artist, but I've lived the reality of frustration, improvement, and accepting imperfection. My sketchbook became my timeline of trial, error, and growth. It taught me patience. It taught me to look at something I thought was ugly and still see potential. And it taught me that I could not get better at anything if I erased every sign that I was trying. Now, I want you all to think about a time where you thought about quitting. Maybe it was a project that didn't work out, a test that didn't go your way, or a moment where you fell behind everyone else. What if instead of ripping that page out of your life, you kept it? What if instead you looked at it as proof that you were learning? That's what shifted and completely changed my mindset. When I stopped hiding my messy pages, I began noticing how much I was improving, even when I didn't feel it day to day. It made me more patient with myself and more willing to try without being scared of failing. And guess what? Every skill works the same way. You don't go to the gym one time and magically get stronger. You don't pick up an instrument one day and immediately play a full piece. You don't learn a new subject overnight. Growth comes from repetition. Repetition comes with mistakes, and mistakes, well, they build progress. My early drawings were not setbacks. Instead, they were stepping stones. Every page, yes, even the disasters, taught me something the next one needed. My goal today is simple. I want you all to be less afraid of your bad pages. Whether you're working on school, your art, your relationships, or even yourself, do not feel the need to erase everything that does not look perfect. Growth is messy. It is smudged lines, uneven shading, and proportions that make you wonder if you should quit altogether. But those are the pages that matter the most. This is an actual page from my first sketchbook. You can see the uneven lines and random shading that were definitely not on my side. But these pages show exactly where I started. I also wanted to show how that beginning led me to new forms of art. Over time, I moved from traditional drawing to digital artwork. The same patience I learned from those early pages helped me to grow as I experimented with colors, layers, and techniques on a screen instead of on paper. As you can see, they look completely different from the original drawings, but they came from the same place. They came from not giving up on the messy pages that taught me to get better. When I look through that old sketchbook now, the ripped edges and smudged pages don't bother me anymore. Instead, they remind me of how far I've come. So to everyone sitting here, do not rip out your pages. Keep turning them. You might be surprised at how beautiful your story looks when you can see the whole book. Thank you.
It's a hit Metallica song. It's the number of college degrees the average person has.
and it's how many chances at life we get. Hi, I'm Evan, and for me, one is a key part of my life, as in case you haven't noticed, I have one arm. About 10 weeks into her pregnancy, my mom went in for a routine checkup when the doctor noticed something strange about me compared to most babies in the womb. Part of my left arm was missing. This was a huge shock to my parents, as they weren't expecting their kid was going to be born missing an arm. I mean, would anyone expect that? My parents had no clue what they were going to do, but they began reaching out to several limb difference groups to find out what they need to change or adapt for me. But it turned out to not be much, though. Now, today's actually my birthday. Exactly 18 years ago, I came into this world. And as I'm aging into adulthood, I've been reflecting a lot on my childhood. Growing up, my parents, they were amazing. They always supported me in trying new things despite any challenges they think I'd face. My mom pushed for me to try tennis from a young age, which both she and my grandfather loved playing. And when I was first starting, I was pretty good at the forehand shot, but I struggled a lot more with the backhand shot. And I had to work tirelessly with my coach in order to get it down to a solid level, and I was even able to add some spin to my shots. Now, my dad, on the other hand, he was more of a baseball guy. He wanted me to play Little League. So when I was first starting, he reached out to Jim Abbott, a former MLB player with a similar arm as mine, who pitched a no-hitter for the Yankees back in 1993. We ended up with a system where I'd be practically ripping my glove on and off my arm super quickly to throw and catch the ball, and I'd say it worked out pretty well. Now, a lot of you might hear this story and think it's super inspirational or motivational. And I think, while it can be, for me it isn't really, it's just my story. I feel having one arm doesn't define my limits, it's only defined my perspective on life. Now, don't get me wrong, of course, I'm proud of everything I've done. In the past year or so, I've fallen in love with exercise and working out, I've gotten in the best shape of my life, and I even started to learn how to play guitar. At first, it was really challenging. Most people, when they play, hold a guitar pick between their thumb and their index finger, which for me wasn't really an option. So I ended up working with my prostheticist to design a custom sleeve I could slide onto my arm, and it would hold a guitar pick right about here. Now that I've been playing for a bit, I've learned some more complex songs, like The Man Who Sold the World by David Bowie, and Sweet Child of Mine with its guitar solos, which for a beginner or newbie to guitar isn't super easy. Now, here's the thing I've learned throughout my whole life. The one thing people see when they first look at you isn't the thing that defines you. For me, that thing has always been my arm. It's what people see before they get to know me or my personality. But my arm has taught me that our challenges are great catalysts for creativity. The challenge isn't the problem. The challenge is how you respond to it. For me, I'm better at responding to difficulty because the normal way of doing things isn't always an option. And yes, my arm has limited me. It's forced me to be more creative and come up with new solutions. And that has been a true gift. Each and every one of us has a constraint. It could be at home, at school, at work, whatever. We see these as just roadblocks. But what I hope my story teaches you is that our roadblocks just create detours, not dead ends. These aren't finishing lines, they're starting lines. They're the start of a great new solution. And that solution, that detour, is how you define your one. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start off with a quick acknowledgement to any math teachers in the room right now. And no, don't worry, I'm not going to ask you for extra credit. I just want you to know that if you're surprised to see an exponent on the title of my talk, don't worry, you're not alone. I'm actually surprised as you are. That surprise is why I'm standing up here tonight. Not because I'm a genius at math or something, because I'm not. But because I'm sure most of us have been through something in life, whether that be a class, a challenge, or even a moment we just didn't feel built for. For me, this was math. In fact, of all places, the idea for this talk came to my mind sitting in Miss DeGennaro's AP English Literature class. Miss DeGennaro was discussing Sisyphus, a mortal in Greek mythology who was punished by the gods. He was subjected to roll a boulder up a mountain for eternity. Only, every time he made it to the top of that mountain, the boulder would tumble all the way back down. Sounds pretty bleak, right? I mean, who pushes a boulder forever? However, Miss DeGennaro pointed something out that I had not previously considered. In those moments where the boulder tumbled back down, when Sisyphus failed, It was then that he was most aware, most human, and maybe even most accomplished. Later that day, when I walked into Miss Gant's AP Calc class, I realized that Matt had been that boulder for me for years. This connection struck me because for most of my life, I accepted that I was just bad at math. Every homework that I sat hours unable to comprehend, every test that I failed, it was my own version of boulder, something that I'd push up and watch roll back down over and over again. I always saw math as something that dragged me down. It became so bad that I began hiding my tests in my bag, convinced they weren't worth looking at and embarrassed. Every time math came up in conversations with friends and family, I'd be quick to change the subject. Now, my mindset towards math didn't change because of some awakening or finding beauty in the equations. It changed because one day, I was sitting in a college information session, kind of dozing off, when suddenly, the admissions officer basically said, if you're applying to a business school, calculus is non-negotiable. So now, I'm sitting there, kind of in a panic, thinking, great, I just spent the last 3 years of high school trying to avoid taking calculus or a higher level math, and now you're telling me I have to take calculus my senior year and in college? I was at a loss for words. But I also realized that I was at a crossroads with two options. I could either A, keep avoiding math like the plague, or B, start pushing the boulder that I've been stuck behind for years. I chose the latter. I stopped throwing away my exams and I began reviewing them. I went back through each question I got wrong, saw where I went wrong, and saw how I could do better for next time. I learned that each equation has its own unique solution and own unique way to get there. And it might have taken me 4 years to learn, but I realized that math isn't about being a natural genius. It's about persistence. And quite frankly, so is everything we do in life. Now, the story of Sisyphus and math. I know, the most exciting idea for a Cougar Talk. So if you've been sitting here thinking about what you're having for dinner, or what your weekend plans are, 1, I don't blame you. And 2, I just want you to take away this message. I am not an inspirational speaker, and I definitely don't have everything in life figured out. But if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that failure doesn't have to be a setback. It can be a chance for you to see a new perspective. From an incorrect question like me, to looking at the steep slope ahead from behind a boulder, sometimes failure is the best perspective some of us could get, because we can see clearly where we went wrong and how we can start again. So don't avoid your boulder, embrace it. I might not be the best math student in my class. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that I'm not. But if there's one thing that I'm no longer, I am no longer the student that hides his exams from himself in his bed, convinced they aren't worth looking at. Now, I look at the red marks and I think, okay, what can I do better for next time? Because to me, life isn't just about reaching the top. It's about learning to love the climb there and to find power and purpose in the struggle. Now, I want you all to think for a moment. What's your boulder? What's that thing that's been on your mind? It could be something as simple as the thing sitting on your dining room table. It could be the test you have coming up, the game you have this weekend. It could be anything. We all have different boulders. But we're all faced with the same question. Are we going to let our boulders crush us? Or are we going to push them and overcome them? I think we can overcome our boulders. Because if Sisyphus can overcome his boulder, then maybe, just maybe, we can too. Thank you.
How many of you have a playlist for every mood that you're in? Like, have you ever felt upset and then immediately clicked on your sad mix on Spotify? Or maybe you wake up on a morning where you feel especially exhausted, and the first thing you do is play your favorite song to get you ready for the day. We all do it. We turn to music to match our emotions, or sometimes to change them completely. Whatever your relationship with music may be, music is a huge part of your daily life. People often think that the power of music ends there, that it's just background noise as you clean your room, do your homework, or blast your favorite song on the way to school. But what if I told you that music's power actually goes much deeper than that? Does music not only have the ability to entertain us, but to heal us? In our country today, an estimated 59.3 million adults have suffered with mental illness in the past year. For people our age, that number is over 5.3 million. That means every 1 in 5 teenagers is struggling with mental health right now. Over the last decade, the stigma around mental health has definitely decreased. People have become more open towards remedies such as therapy, medication, journaling, and exercise. Still, there's one remedy that many people tend to overlook, assuming it couldn't possibly make that big of a difference. A remedy that I believe deserves just as much recognition: music. For me, music has always been more than something I just enjoyed. It was a part of who I was. Growing up in a household that was constantly filled with music, it was hard to escape it. I've been performing since I was 5 and singing for as long as I can remember. There was never a time in my life when music didn't have an active presence. It was never something I had to find, it was always just there. It was my constant. But in November of 2021, my relationship with music changed forever. That was the year my mom was diagnosed with cancer. Throughout her battle, I watched as she experienced incredible highs and devastating lows. Some days she was unstoppable, other days she barely had the energy to get out of bed. But through it all, I watched as one thing remain the same: her love for music. She used to say, "You are in charge of what kind of day you have. If you want to have a good day, start with good music." At the time, I didn't understand how powerful this mindset really was, but I watched her live by it. Even as the number of hospital bracelets and medication piled up on her nightstand, she always began her morning with a song. I saw how music gave her strength. And after she passed away, I found myself wondering how she managed to stay so strong, how she kept smiling even when things were so hard. For a long time, I didn't have an answer. I was only 14 and suddenly dealing with grief I didn't know how to process. Losing a parent at that age is something no one can really prepare you for. It felt like the world had just stopped turning. Everyone around me kept moving forward, but I was stuck. I didn't know how to keep going. And that's when I turned to the one thing that had always been there for me: music. I started listening to songs that reminded me of her, songs she would listen to while cooking or driving me to school. I sang the songs she loved singing with me, and slowly, I started to understand what she meant. It gave me space to heal. Performing, listening, even writing my own music became a form of therapy for me. It gave me a connection to my mom, something I could hold on to even when she wasn't physically there anymore. And that's when I realized something powerful. Music connects us. It connects us to each other, to our emotions. Music is universal. Every person has some relationship with it, no matter who you are, where you live, or what you've been through. It expresses emotions that are sometimes too difficult to actually explain. Studies have shown the positive effects of music, how it can reduce stress, anxiety, depression, and other mental illnesses. But beyond the studies, it holds something more. For me, music became my anchor. It grounded me. It reminded me that even though life changes, even though people leave, even though grief hurts, I was never truly alone. So the next time you listen to your favorite song, remember, you're not just listening to music. You're giving yourself a chance to heal, to feel, and to grow, one note at a time. Thank you.
We could just have 1 minute. First of all, thank you all for coming. I know we got started a little late and it went a little long, but I do want to take a moment to congratulate the students. It has been a long week and a half, I would say a long couple of weeks, but the process paid off, and I congratulate them. Before we do end this session, I do want to take a moment to, one, thank you all for coming. Of course, thank our administration, specifically our principal, Mr. Ohnberg, my department chairperson, Mrs. Donaldson, the other members of the leadership program, Mrs. Negron, Mrs. Keel, and Mr. Reed for their support tonight, and of course the parents who I'm sure have heard these talks many times. It is now 7:30. We'll start the second session at approximately 7:42, so you can stretch your legs if you're going to stay. And again, congratulations to all of you. Let's have another round of applause.